All right, what's up, everybody?
Hauschka.
Surprise! We're going to talk about field goal kickers. We got a good one for you, and this is a really, I guess, commonly asked question. So I'm joined by Jimmy Hamilton. We've got Eric Barber here, and joining us, Zach Bowhay, who is, again, one of those just awesome dudes that specializes in I'd say primarily Western hunting, Zach. Yeah. I think you make it out east every once in a while, though.
Not very often.
Not very often.
Not as much as I'd like to.
We were trying to get you out there this year, and we weren't able to put it together. So next year,
okay,
we got it on the books. It's as solid as it gets. So when we were talking about, we're like, oh, we should do a podcast together, and really how we came up with this topic, we're like, what do you get asked the most?
Yep.
What do you get asked the most? And what you said to me was, I want to go on my first Western elk hunt. Where do I start? How do I do it? And that actually couldn't be a better topic today because we actually recently did a podcast with the Born and Raised guys, Born and Raised Outdoors.
Yep.
Check them out. They're really into elk hunting too and do quite well at it. And Eric, within that conversation, he was planning on a Wyoming mule deer hunt. And
not anymore.
Not anymore. He's
Plans wrecked.
Yep. He's going to be doing a 180. He's going elk hunting this fall. But Eric, this is going to be the longest intro ever. I'm trying to. Am I laying out too much?
I don't know.
So Eric is an extremely accomplished Midwest whitetail hunter.
Mark's making me blush.
He could out hunt me over here, or in our neck of the woods, any day of the week, which probably isn't saying a whole lot.
Eric is also the personification of a lovable golden retriever.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. That likes to kill deer and elk. Hopefully elk.
And hopefully elk. So anyway, we brought Eric here because he has hunted a lot, hasn't hunted elk, and so he'll be able to give us, that perspective. And we've got Zach here because you're a pro at hunting elk. And
we should meet.
Pro.
Air quotes flying left and right.
Yeah.
Let's answer these questions. So, Zach, maybe introduce yourself, beyond what we did here, and let's hear about you. And
well, I'm just a regular dude from Idaho who loves hunting elk. Kind of got the hunting industry started writing articles about 10 or 11 years ago now, and started doing some video stuff. Worked for the Western Hunter, did some videos with them, and started my own deal. Shameless plug, the Hunt DIY deal that I'm doing, and still do more writing than anything else, but more than anything, I just love hunting. I love hunting elk. If I have anything to hang my hat on, it's hunting elk in the West, and that's what I love to do. So my wife and my kids say I only live in the house about 7 months a year, and it's usually true. So but I don't work in September, and I don't work in October. So
those are 2 good months to have off.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're taking some time to hunt elk then.
Yeah, I've hunted at least, graduated from high school in 97, and I've hunted elk at least 30 days every fall since then.
Son of a bee sting.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Even if it meant quitting my job to do it.
Buckle up, everybody. We're tapping into a pretty darn solid elk knowledge base right now.
Still learning every day. So,
yep.
Oh yeah. So how does one even start a podcast discussing how to start your first elk hunt? Where do you start, Rick? What's popping in your head that you're wondering first?
Like for myself, being someone that like has hunted before but not elk hunted, it's one thing to go like deer hunting, especially in the Midwest. You sleep in your bed every night. You go hunt every day, you come home. That's not the case elk hunting. There's camps involved. I mean, do you put camp on your back versus do you have a base camp? There's just so much out there that it kind of leaves a guy wondering about what to do and how to get started. How does one go from square one where someone has some hunting knowledge but has never elk hunted before? How does that process look? What does that look like?
Well, to talk about camp first is all of us Western guys, we want to paint this picture that we all strap a 50-pound pack on our back and head into the wilderness for 14 days on end. You can do it if you want to. I hunt a lot of times. I prefer to backpack hunt. It's my favorite style of hunting. Mm-hmm. I also have a 30-foot camp trailer that I stay a lot of nights in during September, and I'm not afraid to say it. Mm-hmm. What I generally do especially when I hunt in Idaho, I'll pack in Sunday, and I'll hunt Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. My kids have a 3-day weeks or 4-day week school, and so they get off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so all week I'm free to do what I want, but it's hard to be gone that entire month if I'm not going to see my wife and 3 little kids. And so my camper set up, they come up on Thursday night, and I'll hunt from camp still. Every morning I hunt till midday, but I'll come back, spend the day with them or the evening with them, and then Sunday I head back out. And so don't let anybody paint a picture that you have to go west and you have to backpack hunt. And there's so many people thinking that's what it is now. Mm-hmm. It's as crowded in the backcountry as it is a mile from the road. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, any hunt I go on, I have my backpack with me and all my gear just in case. Mm-hmm. But I'm just as happy hunting from my truck, and I've killed way more elk on day hunts than I ever have on a backpack hunt.
Really? That's awesome. I mean, that, like you said, that's one of those things where, like, now it almost seems like that's the thing to do. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of good reasons why, getting into the backcountry can be beneficial. But just like deer in the Midwest, you might shoot a deer 200 yards from the parking lot, just like you might shoot an elk a half mile from the trailhead. We're
all seeking solitude. Mm-hmm. That's all we're out there. And everybody wants to be 20 miles from the road. But you drive to my neck of the woods and you walk a mile and a half from the road to 10,000 feet. You have solitude. I mean, it's as beautiful there as it is 15 miles from the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
And a lot of guys just can't do it.
Right.
I mean, it's a big task to drive from the Midwest or back east. You've never hunted in the mountains before, and just strap a 60-pound backpack on and head in for 7 days. I've seen a lot of guys do it, and I've seen a lot of guys crumble.
Yeah. Yeah. And
pretty demoralizing.
It is. I mean, guys show up and they're just like, I really have to go up there after those elk? I mean, that's where they are, and so the backpack style. What I love about it is you're there. You expend a lot of energy in the morning when you're day hunting, hiking from the truck up to 8,000 or 10,000 feet and back. But a steak and a nice bed's not bad either. And so sometimes I'm willing to walk an hour and a half in the dark in the morning or at night to do it. But I do like a backpack on my back too. So, but you can get it done if you want to day hunt. If you want to do. I'll do a lot of, one thing I've kind of do is like, if I got a spot I want to hunt and I feel like the wind's going to be better first thing in the morning, I'll hike in there with just like, I won't even pack my stove. I'll take a couple sandwiches. I'll go and do an evening hunt, stay overnight. My pack only weighs 8 pounds more than it would if I was day hunting. Stay the night, hunt the morning hunt, and back to the truck. Or you can do a 3-day hunt, or you can do a 7-day hunt. I mean, or you can just hunt from your truck every day. Don't let anybody tell you have to be an extreme backcountry hunter, because it's not the case.
Well, I think that, like you said, there's definitely advantages to both, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're limiting, if you have camp on your back, and like you said, you're there, you don't have to expend that energy to get back to your camp and then back out in the morning. But there's also, extra gear considerations there, I mean, that's, could be a potential financial burden for a person.
The quality of your sleep.
The quality of your sleep.
It's a big thing. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think to me, like you said, that picture gets painted a lot, and it's a great way to hunt, and a lot of people do it and enjoy it and find success. But it's probably a breath of fresh air for some guys to hear, like, oh, wait, it doesn't have to be like that. I can car camp and just day hunt.
I mean, it's beautiful being in your little one-man tent, setting up right where the elk are at night, and there's bulls bugling all night around you. Like, it is every bit as magical as people make it.
Yeah.
It is amazing. But so is bugling a bull within a mile of your truck.
Right.
And he comes screaming in your face.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd do it. Can I go back a little bit in like this chronological order, so to speak, or whatever, and ask why elk? Like, why? What is the allure? Maybe it's obvious, right? They're just big, majestic, cool creatures. But what's the allure to elk? What's the differences between elk and like mule deer, or some of the other big game that's out west?
We're not going to talk about deer, but
yeah, sorry, we already talked
them
about that.
talking you hunting mule deer. You and I have talked about this before in Wyoming. It's hunting mule deer in Wyoming is an experience that if you don't do it in your lifetime, you're doing a huge disservice. Western Wyoming is a magical place to hunt hunt mule deer. So I can't tell you why elk over mule deer, because I love them both.
Okay,
but elk for me is just what I grew up doing. My dad didn't care about deer. He was an elk killing fool, and when I was 12 years old, he was dragging me around the mountains, and it's just, I don't know, it's just, they just have something about them.
Yeah. What like as far as their characteristics, do they add? All big game that you chase and that you hunt is challenging. I'm not going to say that any of them aren't challenging, but is there any specific characteristics about elk that make them uniquely more challenging in one regard compared to some of the other species of big game out there? Like, do they do anything? Is it where they live? Is it how they act, how they respond to things?
It's just got to be the animal, because any mule deer hunter will tell you elk are easy to kill, and any elk hunter say anybody can kill a mule deer. It's just the way it is. But
Well, I've hunted both, and I'm going to say they're both hard to kill.
they're both.
Yeah.
Well, all you got to do is look at the harvest statistics of a general over-the-counter tag across the West for elk, and anybody that tells you the elk are easy to kill is full of crap.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, because if it's 20%, it's a good unit. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a phenomenal unit. Most units are 5 to 15% success,
Okay.
and so
And is that just because of where they live, or is that because of just how crafty they are and how keen their senses are? Or?
they're just, like I had a tag in Utah last year, and it's not the same. I killed a bull August 30th last year in Utah, was screaming his head off, came storming right in. I shot him at 9 yards. It was August 30th. I went back to Idaho. I got started hunting September 2nd, and the first real elk encounter I had was on September 28th, and I hunted every single day between those two periods.
Wow.
And so I'm not going to tell you, I've killed a lot of elk. I'm not going to tell you it's because I'm some phenomenal elk hunter. I don't quit, and I'm willing to go for 30 days straight, and a lot of guys aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark and I talked about it last year. He went on a hunt, and he felt like am I allowed to say that? Mark said he felt like he wasn't prepared when he got there, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not used to hiking straight up and down mountains all day long, and you show up, it's like, I can't do this every day, nor do I have the desire to drag my ass out of bed again tomorrow morning and hike straight up that mountain. And it's like, I guess I'm just stupid, and it's what I live for all year, and I can rest next month is my mentality. But it is hard. It's a lot harder than people give it.
Mm-hmm. How much time should someone allow themselves if they're coming out from the eastern side of the country? How much time should they allow themselves to get a good solid elk hunting experience?
It has to be at least 10 days.
Okay.
2 weeks is better.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have any intimate knowledge. You might spend the first 5 days finding an elk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and then elk aren't patternable, especially during September. In general season hunts, they're not generally. So it's just a lot of effort. It's time. It's time. And what I'm going to tell him, he comes out west this year. Like, you've never hunted elk?
Nope. I've seen an elk.
It's going to be, I don't care if you kill one or not.
Yeah.
It sounds like how much you enjoy it. You will be back.
Yeah.
It gets in your blood. I can't explain it. It's just, I love every second of it. I love the hard parts of it. I love it when it's raining. I love it when it's crappy. And the easy hunts are the ones I forget. The ones where I was so close and didn't get it. It's like, I'm going back there and I'm going to win next time. And so that's the thing for me, is just, I don't know what the answer to your question is.
I think there's just something special about those animals. I'd say particularly for me, and you hunted elk, 10,000% more than I have. But September and elk, and apparently August, you can find bulls that are just raging bugles. But there's just that is a magical time of year. And to that point, like I was hunting moose with some buddies this last September. Phenomenal hunt. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, dream come true. Actually got one. But I didn't bow hunt elk. And that was I felt like, that was a tough trade. It doesn't sound like, it wasn't a tough trade, but it was at the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I can be on a good hunt somewhere, like in a Utah, like in a Utah hunt, it is so much better than when I hunt in Idaho. It's not even in the same, man, I cannot wait to get back to Idaho and hunt those elk. Or I can't wait to go to Wyoming and hunt those deer, because it's just harder than hell where they're at, and it's almost like cheating when you're in a spot where nobody else gets to hunt. So and I get it. September's a beautiful time to be in the mountains, and the grass is still green and tall, and the 70 degrees during the day, and it's a magical time of year. So.
Even going back to the Allura elk, there's so much that you compare deer hunt to an elk hunt. I feel like if someone who's deer hunted before can go deer hunting, shoot a deer, and they can take it out by themselves. Something as simple as that, that's totally different in elk hunting, like breaking down the animal. You generally speaking, it sounds like you should go with a group the first time. I mean, I can't imagine a situation where my first elk hunt would be like, oh yeah, I'm just going out to a state, half a country away, and I'm going to sit in a tent and, try and shoot an elk. Because then you shoot something and it's like, well, now what do I do? Mm-hmm. So I guess walk us through that process. Like, you got someone who, understands hunting to an extent, but has never elk hunted before. Like, how do you start that process of not only like identifying states, not states, but places where elk might be, but then even the whole process of pursuing them and then, getting one out of the woods? Like, what does all that look like?
Well, states-wise, it all comes to tags
right
anymore, and they're harder to come by. So where you can hunt. You can hunt Idaho, mm-hmm. You can hunt Colorado, you can hunt Oregon. Can you hunt Washington?
I mean, there's OTC over the counter options there. I
would go hunt Washington because all the Washington guys are in Idaho. There can't be anybody. No, I'm just kidding. But those are the only states you have a choice, really.
Right.
I mean, Montana has been 100% for the last. Well, since 2012, but last year, I didn't drop tag last year. Any of those states, Idaho, Oregon is overlooked as an over-the-counter state. There's tons of good elk hunting in Oregon. And, I haven't killed an bull in Oregon. I've only hunted there once, but there's tons of great elk in Oregon. Idaho, if they would give me a tag in Wyoming every year, that's where I would be. They're all... It's not a magic... It's not about where. You've hunted elk. It's not about where to me. It's about, it is about where. I want to hunt cool places, but there's elk in all of them. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to drive from, do you live in Wisconsin?
Yep.
I'm probably going to go to Colorado because it's the closest state to me, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm going to drive, and I'm going to drive, that's where I'm probably going to go to.
Yep.
And there's a lot of hunters in Colorado, and that was everybody's complaint. Am I allowed to say everybody's bitch on Colorado was that there was too many hunters. Well, there's too many hunters in Idaho. There's too many hunters everywhere. It's good and bad. For Vortex optics, it's good.
Yeah, for a lot of things, it's good. But
it's good for all of us. But for the guy who's wanting to be alone in the woods in September, it's not good. There's going to be people, but all of them are crowded. Mm-hmm. You just have to be tenacious, be willing to go there and find elk. And so Idaho, right now, and I live in a unit in the middle of Idaho, that we had a whole bunch of depredation issues a couple of years ago. A mile of my house, I have 2,000 elk in the hayfields, and there's people, and so we got to kill some of these elk. There's too many elk, and so now the Fish and Game Department is sending, and justifiably so, they need to kill some of the elk. Right. It is a problem. And so they're planning. We're just going to send everybody that calls us to these areas where they're calling. And so everybody, I'm going to go hunt there. That's where all the elk are. Well, there's as many elk in the next unit, and there's a quarter of the bow hunters. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first place I would start. I have a lot of people call me. That's how this whole thing started with Mark. Called me how do I go hunting in the West? Where should I go? Mm-hmm. I would go to an area that has... You can call the state of Idaho, the state of Montana, the state of Colorado, and they will give you every unit that is meeting or exceeding objectives on their herds. Mm-hmm. And I would find the one with the meeting objective, even slightly below objective, with the least bow hunters, and that's where I would go.
Yeah.
It's not would I take a Manti elk tag again this year in Utah? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have one. I'm not going to get one. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go somewhere. That's what I'm doing now. I'm tired of a million people, so I'm going to go to the unit next to mine where I love to hunt, but there's a quarter of the bow hunters.
Right.
And there's still elk.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a better experience because you did drive from Wisconsin. You don't want to see 5,000 people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then how do you gauge, I guess, the number of hunters per unit? Like, how would you be able to tell, I know there's going to be less guys over here?
Well, you can break it down, their harvest statistics in most states, how many guys have hunted in those units.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So,
okay, I see.
Like in Idaho, you can go to I can speak the most of Idaho because I hunt there the most, but you can go into Idaho, you can filter their state harvest statistics into general and controlled units. You can go into the controlled units and look at the general units, look at them by any weapon, muzzleloader, archery. You can look how many guys hunted, how many days they hunted, what their success rate, how many killed 6-point bulls or bigger, and so I just feel like if there's one of those spots that's got, like, I call the state, they give me objectives, or you can look at Fish and Game, it shows their objective map where their elk are at. You can see, okay, it's meeting objective. There was only 225 bow hunters in this unit, and there was 1,225 in this unit, and these guys had a 20% success rate, and these guys had a 20% success rate. That tells me that they're meeting their objective, which there's a ton of national forest in Idaho and in Colorado and Montana and Wyoming, and they set an objective that is a carrying capacity of the forest, right? And we all know that, and so obviously there's elk there, and for some reason this spot is getting a whole bunch of exposure right now, and this spot isn't. That doesn't mean there's not elk there. And then from there, I would call a biologist and say, hey, and have you called biologists out west yet at all? So
No, I have not.
So when you call them with that knowledge, you say, hey, I found this unit. I noticed that there was 225 bow hunters last year. They had a 20.6% success rate, 65% of which were 6-point bulls. Then I went, and then further than that, I looked on Google Earth. I found these drainages. It looks like there's a good amount of public land. There's good access to trailheads. I want to go there, and I want to spend 2 weeks elk hunting. Am I off base? And when you call them to that point, a biologist in that area, and they're like, hey, this guy actually took the time to look and find out, okay, yeah, there is this. They're gonna tell you.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. More than say, because if you call them Idaho and say, hey, where should I go? They're gonna say, go here.
Right.
We need some elk killed.
Yeah. And they're going to tell you
They're
the
gonna tell
same that they're
5,000
telling.
guys the
other
same
people
thing.
that makes sense.
And so, if we want to seek the solitude we're all after, we're going to have to get more creative than just going to the hot spots or calling the Fish and Game, say, where should I go?
Right.
It's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard because what I do in my writing and my videos is like, I always blame Nate Simmons. I'm like, it's your fault. You made it look too cool. Everybody wants to go there. But we do want to make it look cool, and we want to share experiences. But at the same time, there's other people are going to want to experience that. The guy that kills Midwest whitetails want to go hunt them, and I don't blame him. I want to go kill a Midwest whitetail. You know what I mean?
Lots.
Yeah.
So, but you just have to get more creative than just saying, I want to go somewhere and just have somebody draw you a map.
Right.
Okay.
Well, like you said, I mean, and anytime you're seeking knowledge from really anybody, it could be somebody you know. I mean, doing that legwork on the front end, like you said, I mean, that's a really big deal. From just like, hey, give me your honey hole. Like, those are two different types of questions.
And if they know you're committed, I'm a lot more apt to give somebody if they're like, I feel like they've done something. And just be like, hey, where should I go?
Right.
So,
Right. When you're looking at the maps ahead of time, hitting spots, finding out where public is, finding out what the terrain looks like, the features, what kind of stuff are you looking for in that terrain that you might bring up with a biologist and be like, hey, I saw this. It seems like it'd be a good spot. What does that look like to you?
it's hard because I hunt so many different types of terrain.
Do elk have like one common thing
No.
across all different types of terrain,
No,
or
they-
it just depends on where you're
They're
at?
from the low pinyon cedar stuff to the wide open sagebrush to the 12,000 feet above in Colorado. They're everywhere in
adapt.
between. And that's another thing I was going to tell you is like, all of us are looking for a guy, like if you're going to take a base camp in, you want to go and I want to set my wall tent or my camper right here, and I want to be able to hunt multiple trailheads in every single direction. Or if I don't got to drive 40 miles tomorrow morning, I can get up and I can hike out of my camp, or I can drive a quarter mile and hike. We're all looking for that, and everybody's figured it out. And so that's another thing I'm looking for that I probably shouldn't even tell, but like all the fringe areas, like look for the little pockets that, that people are driving by, that are only half mile from the road or a mile from the road, or it's kind of a funky access thing where you can get around some private and get in there and not just. There's a lot more to be had, and we can find that now with mapping systems than there was before. Then we have to drive to this spot with all this access to public land. But there is elk. You've hunted elk. I'm researching a unit right now for my dad in Wyoming. He's almost 70, and he's got 11 points, and he's in like we got to get him this tag drawn. And so we put him in. He's going to draw it. I'm super excited about it. But I had a guy I know he's one of the hunting, like, he is an encyclopedia of knowledge. He's the smartest guy in the West I've ever met. And he says, well, I know a guy there who says you're not going to kill an elk unless you can hunt the wilderness. Well, you can't hunt the wilderness in Wyoming if you're not a resident or have a guide.
Yep.
And so I called the biologist after I'd already put my dad in. I'm like, man, like, he's going to draw this tag and we're not going to be able to kill an elk. And I called the biologist and he's like, yeah, that's not true. He says, there's always been more elk killed in the low sagebrush country in that unit, and there always will be more elk killed in that lower unit.
Huh.
And it's right down in the cedars in the bottom of the country.
Yeah, I mean, that you bring up something there, too, that I think, and even in my mind, there's kind of this quintessential elk country, right? High country, mixed with, maybe dark timber. Steep, but there's a lot of elk that live in open sage country.
Well, we saw that one when we were just driving here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like in wide open, rolling, wherever we were. I don't even, after you drive
Wyoming.
on I-80 long enough, you just forget where you are. But
Yeah, it depends. Like, like the born and raised guys, they love like the thick timber and the coast, and like you got guys, I was talking to a guy today who lives in northern Idaho, loves that super thick stuff, or a lot of parts in Montana. I know you've hunted there. It's super thick. I mean, just little teeny lodge poles all over. Like, I prefer, if I had to choose, I would choose like where the high desert transitions into the high country. Like, I like the 10,000 foot peaks, but I like the nice big timber draws, and I like the big sagebrush, fingers that coming down the middle of them where elk can feed out on. That's where I cut my teeth, is what I like to do. But I don't care where it is. There's elk in all of it. It's just whatever appeals to you and whatever appeals to your physical ability. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. I don't want people to think I'm going on my first elk hunt and I have to go to 10,000 feet. It's not true. I mean, you can match your physical ability, because all the guys that are young are going to go to 10,000 feet. They're going to go, I got to run up there, and that leaves a lot for the guys down low.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's another big thing. If you don't live at elevation, I mean, that's a real thing. And I think that was, I was on a hunt in Colorado.
Yeah, you told me that.
It's been a while since I've hunted at elevation. And honestly, it wasn't exceptionally high. I think we were probably between, this is guesstimate, but, I think like between 72 and, probably close to 10. But by the end of the hunt, I had my hunt legs under me. Yeah. But at the beginning of the hunt, like it was like the wind was taken out of my sail, and that was, mentally, right? That was like really frustrating. Mm-hmm. And I was hunting with some guys, and it was like, man, it was almost like it was more. The harder part was I felt like I was letting them down a little bit because I was, a little slower, But that's definitely something to think about when you're planning that hunt. Is maybe plan, if you can, right? Time. I always say, man, time and money. Those are the two things we don't have enough of. But if you have a little bit of time to acclimate,
it's a big deal
before that hunt, or maybe even pick an area that's not super high.
Yep. I live at 5,200 feet, and I drove to Colorado. I was telling you this when we were on the phone. I drove to Colorado in 2008. It was my first out-of-state elk hunt, and we drove there in one night. We parked our truck at 9,000 feet, and we backpacked to 11,000 feet. And so I drove just from home. It's 5,200 feet. I hunt at 10,000 feet all the time. It's nothing new to me. I do it all. I mean, we can drive. My base camp in Idaho I drive to is 8,000 feet, 7,500 feet. And 2 days later in Colorado, I am just sick, and I cannot figure out why. Just pounding headache, stomach hurt. It feels like you got the flu, and I finally realized I have altitude sickness. Mm-hmm. Huh. And I walked over and I looked down this big canyon, and I'm like, hey, Josh, my buddy, I'm like, if I walk down that canyon, where do I go? And he says, come out to that next road. And lo and behold, there's like a 330 bull down there. I'm like, that's where I'm going. And I dropped down, and the minute I dropped below like 10.5, I was good. Oh, not a problem in the world. And so it is real. I mean, even for somebody that lives at 5,200 feet, it's real. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no, I mean, I was, like I said, they weren't, in my mind, exceptionally high. And, I mean, I definitely like lost appetite, a little bit of nauseousness, headache, can't drink enough water.
Yep, it's not fun.
It was, yeah. But, but eventually you acclimate to it. But I think it's just something to keep, in the back of your head and be ready for and be thinking about it. And, if you do get those symptoms, if you can,
get a little lower. Yeah. My buddy Matt is from lives in Portland, and he comes out. And Matt could go outside right now and run 15 miles. It'd be nothing. Guy is in phenomenal shape, and he's better now. Like, he's in ultra amazing shape now, but even when he was in really good shape, ran all the time, I crushed him for like the first 3 days. I mean, and I don't look like the picture of health. We can all see that. But he just couldn't get in the air. He just felt like crappy for 3 days, and after that, he was right there or ahead of me. But
Well, yeah. Air is fuel.
Yeah.
I mean, if your body doesn't have it, it's just like a car without fuel. It just doesn't work.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. But
And then what about like, so, kind of even backing up a little bit, anytime someone goes and hunts something in a different place or a different species, there's like different gear that comes into play there. I feel like a lot of times when you are talking about like doing your first elk hunt, you're talking about someone who has some kind of knowledge and probably, they have gear, it's not like they're starting from square one. So like with that in mind, what are the things that you really look for? Like, I'm assuming I have my own suspicions of like, you have so much money to spend, you're probably going to put it towards boots and a good pack over like, the latest and greatest camo and materials and stuff like that. But is that true? Like, what is that kind of?
I mean, we could argue the camo thing forever, but I don't think there's many things as important as optics for hunting out west, boots, and like, it's not even the camo. It's I could go buy Walmart camo and still kill stuff, I'm sure. But I mean, just the ability to stay out there, this camo that all of us are wearing, it's not, I guess it looks good, but it's more than hype. It's like, I literally can hunt longer and I am more comfortable in whatever the weather can throw at me. And it's worth a lot to me.
So what are the things that what are you bringing on your backcountry elk hunt?
Everything am I bringing?
No, like as far as like the necessities are concerned.
So elk hunting, a lot of times I don't carry. It depends. I don't always carry a spotting scope elk hunting, and that depends on. I always have a good pair of 10x42s rangefinder. I don't always carry a spotting scope. That depends if I'm hunting a mule deer in Wyoming or if I'm hunting a tag in Utah, where I really care about the size of elk I'm going to kill. I will carry a spotting scope, but if I'm doing a backcountry hunt and I can look across a canyon and with my 10x42s and be like, "Yep, I can see a frame. That's enough." You shaved how many pounds out of your pack?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's no joke, especially if you're running anything like an 85 spotter. I mean, you shaved nearly 2 pounds.
Yeah, and then I video a lot now.
Plus the tripod.
Yeah, but I video a lot now, and so I usually have my tripod anyways, and so.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good. And plus, a lot of people do tripod glassing
But
as well.
if I wasn't videoing, I probably elk hunting. You don't really need to. I don't need to tripod glass that much for elk. They're big and they stick out.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, but rain gear, and that's another thing is rain gear is people think they got to buy I wear Kuiu, for example. Kuyu's got like the Yukon stuff or the Chugach stuff. Like, I like the super lightweight stuff because most of the places you hunt in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, we usually have one big rainstorm during September, but usually it's a thunderbuster will come through, it'll rain. Like, I need to be dry for 30 minutes until that passes. And so I don't need to carry the rain gear that's ultra breathable and I can wear it for days on end. And so I carry a necessity, lightweight set of rain gear, good game bags that I can pack down good, 2 knives. Backpacking, I usually carry, I like a floor tent. A lot of guys, I know it's the new craze, the floorless tent. I like floors. That's just me.
Yeah.
Good sleeping bag, good pad. But necessities, it's just, the only thing that changes from my day hunt to a backpack hunt is a pad, a sleeping bag, a stove, a water filter. That's it. I mean, every day I still have all my knives. I have all my game bag. Like, guys I'm not going to pack my game bag. What the hell? How are you not going to pack your game bags? Like, are you planning on not killing anything? Because I'm planning on killing something every day. So.
That seems like an odd thing to leave out of a pack.
Yeah.
It's not surprising how many people do it.
Wow.
That actually does shock me.
Have you heard of people do it? Like, you don't need those. Like, only 10% of guys are ever going to kill an elk. Why are you carrying those for?
We're just out here for a nature walk.
Yeah.
There's a 90% chance I don't need those.
Yeah, I mean, at that point,
I'm just playing the odds.
Yeah.
You might as well just bring a archery target with you out there and just kind of shoot at targets or something.
And then you don't need the license cost either.
Yeah. What are you doing for your nutrition that you take along, food and stuff?
That's always an evolving thing. So my favorite thing is this thing that Cody's doing, Rich, with that package fuel box, because it's always just been Mountain House, right?
Yeah.
Like we all just buy Mountain House, and I am
the Hunter's MRE.
So sick of Mountain House.
That's a good way to put it.
So now I get all I really do love this thing. Like they send me this box with all this stuff, and some of it is terrible, and some of it's awesome. But so I do oatmeal every morning, generally backpacking, and it's the only time I can eat it. And I eat them straight out of the bag. You seen that done?
You just pour water in the
oatmeal
bag.
packets. Oatmeal packets are wax lined, and so you can dump water straight into them. So I eat oatmeal in the mornings, or I might take Mountain House.
Are you heating that water?
Yeah,
or just cold.
Yeah, I heat it just to lukewarm. You don't want to get hot.
Dude, I love oatmeal. I don't know, especially that brown sugar. Cinnamon oatmeal.
I can only eat it during hunting season. The rest of the year, no way.
Well, if that's the only place you eat it, then as soon as
just granola bars. I carry ramen. I eat ramen every day out of the bag. Same thing.
Wait, what?
Yep.
That works.
So you just crunch it up.
Yeah, do you crunch? You just crunch it up and eat it hard?
Nope. You crunch it up. You put the seasoning in there, and you just get the water not boiling.
Okay.
Fill it to just above the noodles. Roll the top. Set it down. Wait 5 minutes, and just eat right out of the bag.
Pro tip.
That's crazy because I remember. Yeah, my buddy and I used to. This was back when I would be playing N64 with my pal in third grade. We used to just crunch up. You'd throw your ramen noodles in a Ziploc bag and then just pound it against the wall until it all crunched up, and you just pour all the chicken seasoning in and just eat it like chips.
Yep.
Crunch.
Yeah. And I just get tired of eating the same granola bars every day. So usually elk hunting, it's action in the morning, and a lot of times during the day you're just sitting down, hanging out, waiting for the evening, and so having a nice hot meal's nice. So then I do eat Mountain House or whatever in the evenings, and then I don't drink coffee, but a lot of times I'll take in the morning first thing I'll take those chicken bouillon cubes, and I'll just throw one of those in hot water and drink that just drink chicken broth in the mornings. Just
good idea.
Something warm in your stomach when you wake up in the morning, and
get
then
some antioxidants or some what the hell is that?
Salt.
Yeah. Electrolytes.
Yes.
Found it.
Yeah. or hot chocolate. It's a lot easier to stay out there if you're not just I can't eat another Mountain House. The only thing that draws me back to the road is food. That's it.
Yeah.
I gotta go get something to eat. So, but
that's always so. I always hear people talk about the comfort things that they bring with, because it's flat out. If you're comfortable, you're going to want to spend more time outside. Even deer hunting, if you bring a thermos full of hot chocolate or whatever to your stand, it's going to help you combat cold weather. So are there any little nuances that even though it might add a little more weight, pillow? Makes sense.
Yeah, I started carrying a
value
pillow.
of a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I started carrying a pillow about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's big.
Do you just go with a straight up standard pillow? Or do you have some kind of special?
I use one of those air pillows.
Okay.
Yeah, that packs down super small, but it's something I never would have carried before. But it is nice.
Yeah.
So I don't carry a lot of. I'm pretty minimalist. I can go for days under 40 pounds with my pack, but that's also due to we've got a lot of awesome gear now too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That wasn't possible at one point.
But man, you talk about creature comforts, and I think that's, can you kill an elk in blue jeans? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Happens every year, several times a year, lots of times a year, right? Yeah. But I do think that apparel, you talk about being able to stay comfortable and stay out longer, and just like you're hunting elk for 30 days and being persistent, being comfortable and having good clothing allows you to stay out and be persistent.
And it doesn't stink either. Good clothes don't stink. That's another thing people don't think about. It's my wife's so disgusting. You can literally wear a pair of merino boxers for 5 days hunting elk and they don't stink. And she's like, that's disgusting. I'm like, it is gross, but it's pretty awesome that they don't stink out there 5 days.
Yeah. Can you imagine pulling off some... No, never mind.
just burn them when you're done.
Don't even bother with that.
But I don't take, one thing when I'm backpacking, I'm really conscious about making my bed nice now more than I used to be, because good night's sleep is another thing that gets people. So like I make sure I prepare my area, because if I don't sleep, I'm done too.
Yeah, yeah.
So Tylenol PM's never a bad idea.
Okay.
So
Do you find that can help with a little bit of elevation?
yeah, just the
Sickness
just
or
the sleeping.
just sleeping?
Yeah, I mean, I never sleep good backpack. I guess I'm talking about that a lot, but that's my hardest thing. Like I don't mind the hiking. I don't mind like. We're also attached to our phones now and everything electronic now, and Facebook and Instagram. It's like, I love backpack hunting more than anything for the fact that my only job today is to hunt elk, find water, find a place to sleep and eat. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I love that part of it. But if I don't sleep, it's hard. And so I make sure I prepare the area I sleep more a lot now than I used to, and take the time to do that, and that adds to my experience. It's just things you learn being out there more. Like if I sleep underneath a big fir tree that's got nice soft ground and needles, like I can pinpoint that from across camp. I'm gonna go over there and sleep tonight. So
Yeah,
and it's probably sounds silly to some people, but it's like it extends your trip.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though. You talk to, I don't know, like I'm gonna like kind of misquote this scenario, but it's essentially like people that are being like interrogated, and being deprived of sleep. Like if you give them the choice of sleep or food, they'll take the sleep.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of goes to show the importance of it. And like you said, you can't. Everything is based on it, man. It really is.
Yeah.
I think you're really right.
We're used to being comfortable.
Right.
Americans are used to being
Yeah.
very comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we're talking about. Like, if you want to go out there and sleep in your queen air mattress in your wall tent for a week and hunt elk, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
You just got to get it there.
yeah, just got to go there and hike your butt off in the morning, but it's still going to be awesome.
Right, right.
But
Are there different tactics that you'll employ on like if you have like a base camp setup? Will you hunt differently than you would if you're still doing the same routine?
I mean, the only difference is I'm going to be covering a lot of ground before dark in the morning, getting to where I want to hunt.
Yeah.
How are you hunting those bad boys? If we talk about that, like we just talked about, or we talked with Born and Raised this morning, they have a different way than many people of hunting. They
Bugle.
Yeah, and then bugle more.
I've killed elk calling, stalking, and a ground blind. So I take a ground blind on every elk hunt I've gone. I've only ever killed one elk out of a ground blind, but I have spent quite a bit. I've killed my biggest bull out of a ground blind.
Okay.
It was on a hunt in Utah that I won at this convention. I won a tag at this convention the first time I ever came here.
Oh, so people do win them.
Yep. And but I stalk a lot more than I used to. I've called in most of the elk I've ever shot, probably 70% of them. But I do stalk a lot anymore, and that is more due to hunting pressure, overcalling by people. A lot of people that I guess I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing, I guess, or not. But a lot of guys that don't know what they're doing, they have a tendency to overcall, in my opinion. And I'm not saying the Born and Raised guys do, because those guys know how to call. But there's a lot of times where that's why I'm saying you'll be back. You go hunting, you'll be back, and you probably won't kill one this year. I'm not to be, but it's
Sucks, Eric.
It's just it's a reality that most of us won't.
Right.
The first time we go, but
Even if you're good,
Yeah.
I've hunted Montana 3 times. I feel like I can kill an elk. I've never killed an elk in Montana. I've had 3 $1,000 tags in Montana.
Yeah.
I haven't filled one yet.
Yeah.
Next, you just got to learn. You got to learn how to talk to elk. If you want to call elk, you got to learn to talk to elk, and that only comes from spending 30 days a year, every year hunting elk.
Yeah.
And so it's just. But I stalk a lot more now, and I think I'm doing it more because I'm enjoying it, just because it's something different.
Yeah.
That I killed my first elk stalking, I think, in 2011, and I spotted a bull with a bunch of cows, and it was in the open, and I just felt like, I'm probably not going to call him in. He's already got his cows, and I'd never even tried. And I stalked right in and shot him like within an hour, and I was like, that was awesome. Like I hadn't done anything that fun in a long time, just because I was so used to him coming to me. And so I do a lot more of that now, but I've always got a ground blind in my truck just in case. We killed a bull in Wyoming 2 years ago that we went there deer hunting in 2013, and there was this lake. It was like a lake. It was just a catch in the top of the mountain, like at 10,000 feet, where the water was just catching. It wasn't a lake. It was just,
Yeah.
and we're hunting deer, and like every evening, have you ever seen those videos like in Arizona where the elk just come prancing in and they're like dancing around the water?
Right.
I'd never seen it. And these elk were like doo-doo-doo, every evening run down and jump in. They're all playing. And so 2 years later, we went back to deer hunt again, and my buddy drew an elk tag. He was, I think, 62 at the time and never killed an elk with a bow. And I said, we're going like 8 miles in on the mules. And I said, we're taking my ground blind. He's like, we're going 8 miles on a mule. And I said, we're taking the ground blind. And we put it up, and I said, you're going to sit there every day. And I said, you won't make it 3 days. He killed a 6-point bull. He'd been bow hunting for years, and he killed a 6-point his second day.
Wow.
That's cool.
And it's just one of those things. If you can find a spot like that, it's worth having a ground blind in your truck.
Yeah.
Even if you never take it out, it's worth taking.
Definitely.
You mentioned the stock. Can you explain the stock for those not familiar with it? Like in my head, I picture, like somebody might picture like a stalker, like where you're just kind of like walking around and hiding behind trees and stuff. Is that just exactly how it works?
Yeah, like a lot of times, like the classic mule deer deal, the mule deer beds underneath the rim rock and they make the big loop around. Like a lot of the elk I'm stalking are moving from feeding to bedding or vice versa, and you just try to intercept them in between those places. I guess it's kind of a stalk and ambush, or a lot of times those bulls will push, they'll push the cows up to a spot where they feel comfortable, and they will bed their cows down, and that's where I stalk primarily anymore. Is I try. We all have a different expectation. Like I don't really get much from shooting a raghorn anymore. I've shot a lot of them. I'm not against it. Like it's just as you progress in hunting, it's just like whitetails. I guess you didn't mind shooting this spike at one point, but I'm sure it doesn't really trip your trigger anymore. So you want to try to shoot something else, and so. I kind of try to focus on the bigger bulls now, and so they'll push those cows to a spot where they feel comfortable, and they'll bed those cows down. And that bull will just spend the entire day circling those herds, checking on the elk, and you can't even always see them. Sometimes they'll just be up there bugling, and you in a one spot, and you know what they're doing. And so these elk have just got to a point where that bull, if you get close enough and cow call or bugle, he's probably just going to take him and go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so even if I locate them from a long ways away, just move in and just follow their bugles as you get closer if you know where they're at, and then just try to get within range of that herd. So when that bull circles that herd, get close enough to the cows that when that bull circles the herd, he's within bow range of you.
Gotcha.
And so, and it's a really cool way to kill elk, and it works really good. I killed just a nice 5-point in 2 or 3 years ago. It was like, my wife and I were backpacked in. We were like 5 or 6 miles from a road, and we got in on this big herd. We chased them all morning. I almost got a shot at these bulls. There was like 50 or 60 head, like a 340 6x7, several nice satellite bulls, and we stalked in there. And I left her just the elk were just over the crest of the hill, and I'd been calling to him, and there was nothing going on. I couldn't get him to like. The bull had so many cows. There was no reason for this bull to investigate anybody else, anything else. He was just doing his thing. So finally I left her right before dark. I went up over the ridge, and I come down, and the whole herd was right below me within 100 to 150 yards. And I was like just kind of stalking in there, and I got down, and I finally got close enough. I felt like I was going to get busted, but I thought I might be able to piss him off. He might come at this point because I'm within 70 yards of this bull. And so I cow call. I see this elk coming. I'm like, man, it's got to be him. Well, it was a spike, and he stopped at like 30 yards, and I quit calling, and he just kind of put his head down, started feeding. And there was so much elk commotion going on below me. It was like the coolest experience. I dropped below him. There was a trail feeding or heading towards the elk. I walked right past that elk with his head uphill, 20 yards below him. He didn't even look at me. I walked right past and came over the hill, and it wasn't the herd bull, but there was a 5-point bull standing there at like 50 yards, and I killed him. And there was hundreds of elk bugles going on, elk almost all the way around me, and it was one in a 10-year. I was right in the middle of this entire herd. They had no idea. It was
like an inside operation, man.
It was.
That's crazy.
Like there was just so much movement and stuff going on.
Yeah, they just didn't care.
They just.
And the wind was right. I was lucky enough that the elk were like in a horseshoe around me, and I came in from here, and that spike was here, and the wind was coming this way, and it was just
wow.
You became one with the herd.
I mean, it was just like I shot, and I was like, that was incredible, So
and that's one of those experiences that you can have.
Yeah.
If you go do it.
Yeah,
That's a unique one.
Yeah,
What do
it doesn't happen a lot.
What are you doing out there as far as being hunted by things like grizzlies or whatever? You know, like somebody who goes out there who hasn't been out in that kind of country before. You know, I can only imagine you're going to be in some areas of the place where there will be other dangerous
There's
game out
always
there that you
something.
should be
Yeah.
concerned about.
I almost always carry something. I started carrying a revolver about the time I had kids. So my daughter's 14 now, and it was more. It does give me peace of mind, but it gives my wife peace of mind more than anything. I started carrying a revolver on hunts where I can't. I usually carry bear spray. I've never had an issue. I've never felt like there was one time I thought I was gonna. I thought my dad was about to get it. We were calling opening day, and my dad was hunting with a longbow at the time, and I was calling. It was August 30th, and I looked down, and there was some thick timber, and I seen like a flash, and what it was my dad's. The light had reflected off the back of his riser on his bow as he spun, and I was like, man, there must be an elk coming in. And all of a sudden I see him just drop his bow, and he's waving his arms, and I'd called a sow and 2 cubs in, and they got to like 10 yards of him before they realized we weren't elk, and they treed, and that was the only time that I went down there, and he was like trying to get a picture, and it was one of those points like she was indicating that like it is time for us to get our stuff and move on. But I like one sleeping. I do like one when I'm staying on the hill by myself at night. It's nice to lay by your pillow just in case, but
yeah,
I've never felt the need to use one.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, as far as another thing that I had heard once from a guy who's elk hunted his whole life, talked about, you know, these camp situations where when he's backpacking in, he'll, you know, half the battle is finding elk, right? But then once you have them found, he'll before he gets real aggressive and starts actually hunting them, he'll try and find a situation where he can get those elk bedded on one side of a hillside, and, you know, maybe it's late in the day. He'll set up his camp on the opposite side, but about that same elevation, because he's, you know, taking thermals and stuff into consideration and whatnot. But he'll try and get as close to those elk that afternoon, spend that night there, and sleep on them that night, and then that next morning is usually when it tries to go down. I mean, that is like super advanced, I would imagine, but how does that work?
Yeah. The elevation thing, I don't care where they're I don't care where I'm at, but it is nice being within striking distance in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, but you got to be. Last year, just an example, I backpacked into this spot, and it was the wind was just howling, and I was like, another guy was with me. I'm like, I'm hearing guys talking, and he's like, no, and I'm like, I can hear a guy talking, and we got up in the morning, and we couldn't figure out there was nothing. Like the spot's always got elk, and we got up and we went across the base and looked, and there was a camp like 600 yards above us. And I think he had cell service.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And he was just sitting out on this ridge in the middle of this basin, and the wind was like, I mean, legit 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and I could hear him from several hundred yards away.
Wow.
And like, they are fairly intelligent animals, and they don't like people. I mean, and so, but if you can, I snore, so I try not to get too close, you know. But if you can be within that quarter mile, half mile in the morning, it's because elk in the morning are going to get up, they're going to be feeding, and they're going to be moving very soon.
Yeah.
On pressured public land, very soon. As soon as the sun hits the hillsides, they're going to be heading for some timber.
Huh.
And so if you can be within, and that is your best chance, is to be on those elk before they hit their bedding spot, if you want to call them especially.
Yeah.
And so being within that striking distance, I mean, it exponentially ups your odds.
Yeah.
If you're there.
And you talked about like bedding and feeding locations. Like to me, I come from a whitetail background. Feeding location is a cornfield. A bedding location is, you know, anything that's not corn. So how do you break that down if you're looking at an area on a satellite map that just looks like nothing but monotonous?
Well, elk, they like those dark north slopes, you know, in the September's hot. It's it's 80 degrees a lot of times, and
so they're looking for cold.
And so they want to go in there, and there's a lot of times it's in the nasty blowdown, which you can't see on Google Earth. But I mean, this the thick timber, but they just like those bigger. It depends. I mean, some spots it can be a teeny opening, but a lot of times it's probably silly to say, but there's so many elk out west right now that you can drive out there, and a lot of times from the road, glass in the evenings, and see elk on a hillside. I mean, that's probably silly for me to. I don't know if somebody from Wisconsin thinks that's silly, but it's true. Like, if you hike into a spot that's got a good elk population, and you
Right.
glass where there's openings in the evenings, there's a good chance there's going to be elk in them.
Yeah. Well, I think like anything, I mean, even whitetail hunting, like it gets overcomplicated the more
Yeah.
information you try and find out about it. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you do got to like just, you know, dumb it down a little bit
Yep.
and make it less complicated. And that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
but if those elk are going to move out into those openings, more than likely, I mean, they don't like, there's nothing in the timber for them to eat. I mean, they can browse around a little bit, but all the stuff to eat is out on the opening faces. So they'll be out there in the mornings, they'll be out there in the evenings, depending on moon, because if it's, you know, bright moon, they might not come out till dark and be back by dark. But, I mean, and it might even come down to just getting in there. I mean, if there's a good herd of elk and it looks like elk country,
be there.
there's timber, there's going to be elk. And even if that means you just got to hike and go see if there's sign, it's just, they're there.
Right.
Yep. You think that moon makes a big difference, though, with how, you know, at least their visibility in the
Yeah.
morning and evening?
Yeah, it's funny. You know, those times when there's a full moon, those elk will go, you know, they'll bed real early in the morning because they've been out all night. And so it seems like morning is always my favorite time to hunt elk because I feel like you have time to make it happen. In the evening, you're going to run out of time. You know, you have all day to make it happen. But a lot of times we do a lot better in the evenings when it's been a full moon because they've been laying down all day and they're ready to get up.
Right.
You know, and so that last couple hours can be really good. But I don't know if the moon has as much to do with elk activity as like the estrus cycle is. Nobody knows. I don't think anybody really knows the answer to the estrus cycle of elk or deer or anything. But
Are elk calves born at traditionally the same time every year?
Yeah. So, but I don't know if it's moon or if it's just it's time to breed or I have this weird feeling that elk know what kind of winter we're going to have. I don't know why I have that feeling, and they breed like. But our rut is also getting later and later. Like
That's interesting.
I killed my buddy Matt. You know Matt Elliott. He killed a cow elk on November 10th, in 2018, in a herd with the bull absolutely screaming his head off. I had that bull talking for 2 hours before Matt killed
Yeah.
him.
Amazing.
November
Yeah.
10th.
That's unreal.
I thought it was a guy. Matt, we got up there and we'd spooked this herd and they went across this ridge and they were in this I thought, Matt, if you get over that opening, they're just kind of milling. Like, I feel like, you know, and Matt was like, had limited time. He said, I'm shooting any elk. It was neither sex tag. I'm going to shoot any elk. I feel like if you get over there, you're gonna, and all of a sudden I start hearing this bull bugling. I'm like, it's got to be some guy. And I kept cow calling. I get closer and closer. This bull screamed for 2 hours. And Matt said it finally come out right below him. And he said it was all riled up for my calling.
Huh.
When the rut should have been over for a month and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
That is
So,
crazy.
And I feel like it's getting later and later. And I don't know if it's the global warming that we all talk about or what. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it's global. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's pressure. I don't know what it is. But they are rutting later.
Interesting.
Or, I mean, you go back to, I'm like, I've never heard that before, but, like, they can somehow sense the winter. It's like, you know, like, it's not going to be a
Yeah.
bad winter. I
Well-
can breed late in the year. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, honestly, I live in Idaho. We didn't have winter until 2 weeks ago.
Right?
Oh, it was similar in Wisconsin, too.
yeah.
I mean, it was just like winter woke up from a drunk stupor and then realized it had work to do.
I trap bobcats in the wintertime, and our season is in Idaho December 14th to February 16th. And usually by the time I pull my traps on the 16th, it is melting, like significantly melting. And we got a foot of snow yesterday,
Yeah.
and it's just piling on. And so maybe they can sense that it's going to be later or earlier. I don't know,
That is interesting.
but yeah, it's just I don't know if the moon plays as big a phase, but it definitely. I don't know if it like. I guess that's what I was ultimately getting to. I don't think it plays. I don't know if it plays a bigger role in their estrus cycle, but it definitely plays a bigger role in how they're going to act throughout the day. Because if they can go feed all night and not deal with 200 bow hunters tomorrow, it's a good thing for them.
Yep.
So
It's crazy how animals are affected by the environment around them. You know, they always say like a dog knows when it's going to be storming out or whatever. They even have dogs that can like sniff heart attacks or something. I don't even know how it works.
we have a friend whose son was completely off topic, was diagnosed with epilepsy last year.
Okay.
Oh,
And
and
I
they can-
think
yeah.
they're going to get him a dog,
Yeah.
and it's going to let him know it can sense, because like he was out playing hide and seek this last summer after he got diagnosed, and it was in the dark, and he all of a sudden they're like, where is he? And he just fell down outside. You know, they just got to let him be a kid still, but
Yeah.
now he'll have this dog with him that will. that knows.
Yeah, it's wild. It always makes me wonder, like, are there things that humans can sense that other animals can't sense, or are we just like
We're really
super
dumb.
just
Let's be honest. They
our
can smell us from hundreds of yards away.
Yeah.
and
yeah,
so-
yeah.
I think we're really smart, but our senses are
Yeah.
Really
lacking.
bad.
I think, but I
And
feel
oblivious.
like, and I feel
Yeah.
like we've done it to ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
like as humans, we've almost as a species, we've done a gazillion things using our brains in order to make our senses have to do.
I mean,
less work.
you don't even look around anymore. You walk around
But
staring at your phone. For
we
goodness
don't-
sakes,
Right.
you know,
Right.
we're
But
not
we
looking
don't
out
have-
for danger.
Yeah, we don't have to survive anymore. We don't got a mountain lion or a bow
Right.
hunter or a car trying to kill us every 5 seconds.
Yeah, so we can let our
So-
senses be lazy.
Yeah, basically.
Just keep using our big brains,
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
our big stupid
And
brains.
and our opposable thumbs.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Freaking humans got it easy.
No, I mean I don't know. It all kind of goes back to the same thing. Like at the end of the day, you just got to get out and do it. You know?
do. It's
you
there's no substitute.
Right. You can sit there and talk about it all you want, but until you actually, just like anything, just like deer hunting, just like anything that someone wants to get into, you got to do it before you start having takeaways. So,
And getting that elk off the mountain is the other thing you'd asked about.
How does a guy do that by himself?
It's hard. I've never.
You would probably not recommend a solo elk hunt for your first time.
I wouldn't. So I just think it's too intimidating.
Yeah.
I think a solo elk hunt, nothing to do with killing elk. I think it's too intimidating by yourself.
Yeah.
For me, it would be.
Yeah.
Like, I've never hunted in the West, like, oh, there's a big mountain. I'm going to go up there and try to shoot an elk.
Yeah.
So, getting one off the mountain by yourself, I've never done it.
Yeah,
Yikes.
I mean, I'm not too proud to say it.
Yeah.
I've never packed one off by myself.
Yeah.
We always used to have a lot of people in camp, and things have changed. My dad and father-in-law, they've all got older. My dad had a pretty major back surgery. He's not going to carry elk anymore.
Right.
And so I've kind of got in. I've got a couple mules now and a horse, and I really like throwing elk quarters on a mule. I shot a bull with my muzzleloader last November. Speaking of technology, in reached my wife. She drove, loaded the mules, and rode to me, but I didn't even have it broke down by the time she got there, and she drove an hour and a half.
We've been talking about a truck for me all along. I just need mules and a
should get
horse.
mule, yeah.
Yeah. Don't need
Rick's-
to change their oils.
We give Mark crap for his Ford all the time, which, by the way, we like Ford. Ford, we like you. But
Thank you, Jim.
meanwhile, Rick's Chevy over here, GMC, is on the fritz. We're just bashing all these different car companies. Hey, it all happens, right?
My
But you
light,
should get.
I have a light flicker on my truck, and you think we just need to take it to the
Boneyard.
Remember when we
No,
talked
you
about
need to
rabbit
take it to
holes?
the boneyard. You just got to take it into the dealership. Well, anyway, you should get mules.
And a horse.
I could picture you riding to work on a mule
I can entirely picture that.
the original car.
with Cooper on the back.
Yes.
I would have
totally.
never thought I'd get mules, but the guy I told you shot the elk out of the ground blind, he was a school teacher in northern Idaho for 30 years, retired school teacher who contracted Forest Service trails all summer with mules, cut Forest Service trails and the Selway. I mean, how cool is that? Like,
That's awesome.
That is.
and he's just like salt of the earth, coolest guy ever. And I just fell in love with these mules, and I wanted to get some. And I said, if you find them, I'll buy them because I don't know anything about them. I don't want I want my kids to be able to be around them. I don't want to get hurt. And he called me that winter and says, how about I just sell you 2 of mine? And I said, sold.
Yeah.
And so they're awesome. And
Cool.
but you can hire, $300 or $400. You can hire a packer too.
Yeah.
That just, if you head out west and even if you and a buddy are going,
Yeah.
just say, hey, if we kill one, we're going to split it. They're going to come pack it out for us. It usually has to be a licensed outfitter in that area. I've never done that, but I know a lot of guys that have.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can't imagine I guess I'm so used to them now, but I can't imagine hunting whitetails my whole life and walk up to one being like, now what?
Yeah.
I shot a moose. I guess I know what that's like.
Yeah.
You've shot elk and moose, and
They're both large. I
But-
mean,
the
In
moose.
case you didn't know.
The moose.
the scale of the moose was like unfathomable. I mean, everybody says it. Like you stand over one, and just the scale, everything of them is just completely
Their hide
different.
is like that thick.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like, I shot that moose. I walked up to it, was like, oh, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with that thing? Like, it was huge.
Just even like gutting. We gutted
Yeah.
bulls that we killed, and like, I mean, you're literally like half, like, dude, it's like Star Wars, man. Like, you're crawling into this, like, you are inside of it trying to get that esophagus, and I mean, I mean, it's wild.
Do you
man.
still gut most of your stuff?
Dude, I'm like 50. It just depends.
I don't
Depends
remember
on the
that part in Star
situation.
Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me neither.
I will never. I don't know if I'll ever get another animal. I gutted my daughter shot an antelope last fall. Like, so you've seen the gutless method. Everybody
Yeah,
does.
I did
like,
it this year
so-
on a mule deer for the first time.
So I do that on all my elk and everything. And my daughter shot this antelope out of a hayfield out by her house, and she gut shot it. And then she shot it and put it down fast. And I'm like, well, she wanted to haul it back and see. Our one daughter didn't go. We're like 2 miles from our house, and she wants to load it up, and I didn't want to get it in the farmer's hayfield anyway. So I haul it home, and like, antelope stink. You've shot antelope, right? And I don't know if you guys have shot antelope, but they stink. And I'm like,
I like the way they smell.
have you ever smelled a gut shot one?
Okay, that doesn't sound like it smells good.
Yeah. And so we drove over, and I'm like, and so we gutted it. I don't know why. And then we went, and I'm like, we could have done the gutless method. My brother shot a deer in Arizona in November, and he hit it a good shot, but quartered back through it. And we did gutless on it, and the guts were like, it was hit. I didn't get anything on my hands, and I'm like, I'm never gutting another animal. Like, why?
I mean, for me, it's all situational. But
Yeah.
I mean, that you bring up a good point. If you do have, less than, perfect hit where you know, break that gut wad, I mean, you stay cleaner, the meat stays cleaner. You're even just moving that stuff around a lot less, and you might have to trim or even lose the tenders depending. But I mean,
We're gonna have to do a podcast on the gutless method.
yeah, for sure.
Elk are a lot easier to do gutless. I would highly encourage anybody that goes west to watch videos on it or learn how to do it, because it is very beneficial.
Yeah.
Especially if you're by yourself. They're hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, to not have to deal with the guts and just be able to quarter them out, it's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, and just you talk about the size, like to roll, or like you said, by yourself, to roll an elk or move an elk or maneuver it so you can get at it like that. I mean, it's nice to pull off an entire side of that animal.
Yep.
And then you got a lot less. You still got to flip it, but
right.
it's
So-
less to flip.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mark, off your moose, you got like 400 some odd pounds of meat, right? Off an elk, how much should you average? Not like some massive guy, but like an average elk. How much would you say you get off of that?
I haven't even weighted. I don't even know. I mean, that bull, I'll tell you, that bull I shot in Utah this year, his quarters, back straps, tenderloins, and the neck meat, I think they said that when I took it to the meat locker, they weighed 316 pounds.
That's
Yeah.
large.
Yeah, that's big.
I mean, it was a big elk. The elk in Utah eat good. I mean, they're big, but
That's
so
much meat.
that's a big undertaking to get off a mountain by yourself,
Yeah.
especially if you're backpacked in.
Yes. And by yourself.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't backpack in 8 miles by myself and shoot one if I had no help. No way.
No,
Yeah.
I mean that'd be a situation where like if you put some forethought in and contacted a packer,
Right.
then that becomes doable.
Just a packer is just like a hired back and legs. I mean, basically they're just like
Stock. They use stock but they generally have to be it depends on the state. Like in Idaho, I think they're working on that law though. Like in Idaho, like in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, you can guide wherever you want. Mm-hmm. If you're a licensed guide, you can guide in any part of Utah, I believe. But in Idaho, you only have a certain area. And so that if you want to hire a packer, it has to be a guy who's a licensed outfitter within that area.
Okay.
So you'd have to know where you're going. You'd have to contact them ahead of time because it's not legal to hire Joe Blow down the road to, even if he's got horses, to pack your elk out for
Oh,
you.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah,
man.
that is.
Yeah.
A lot to think about.
What do you think?
Tons.
We're rolling up on an hour. Little smidge over.
Yeah.
Packed in a lot of good information.
Mm-hmm.
What I say we roll on a quick round of last calls.
Yeah.
So last calls, we just do anything mildly related on your mind before we close out, bring it in for a landing. We'll have Eric start.
Okay.
You can see how it's done, get used to it, and then
Oh man!
Usually
so
our
I got to
guests
do a
wind up
good one.
having. Usually our guests wind up having the best last call of all. So then,
Yep.
and we just have to try and not ruin it.
Yeah.
And just end it when they're done. Okay.
Yep.
Now
Eric.
the pressure's on because I have to set an example.
Well, no, you're the first one, so really it can be whatever you want.
Okay.
And then, it'll get gradually better as then I go.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
Mark says about 7, and then, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Okay. I mean, for me, it's like you said, it's one of those things you got to get out and do it. I mean, you can sit there, you can talk about it all you want, but until you actually get out and do it. And I really do think that, and this might not be the right way to think about it, but it's probably not as overwhelming as it's made out to be. I think you get out there, especially if you got people with you, it's still hunting at the end of the day. It's not like all hunting has changed. It's just a different species, larger scale, more aggressive country with animals that can kill you. So yeah, it is actually entirely different. So yeah, that's my last call. One up that.
Let's see. My last call. In the past, some people have said that we need to keep spicing them up.
Well, I spiced
If
that
I,
Good spice.
how big, how doable is doing a big old giant thing of elk ribs like we did with that whitetail? How much bigger are elk ribs than that whitetail?
Quite.
You just saw them in half.
You'd have to.
You'd have to. Unless you have
Maybe
some, like,
thirds. I don't know.
thirds, maybe.
My buddy Virgil actually just shot a cow on the. We have some late season depredation hunts. He just shot one and got the ribs. I will let you know he's going to do them.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
So
I love those ribs so much when we did them on the whitetail. Dude,
Yeah.
it was so good.
Yep. And we did that deer gutless method.
We did a coyote style.
And it was a little bit tricky. That was actually super fun. We had talked about this in another podcast. I'm making this way longer, but some guys had come across the carcass and we're like, oh yeah, we got a buck over there. And they're like, kind of told them we're like, yeah, we came across a carcass there, but I mean, it was picked clean. I mean, the ribs were gone and everything.
They're like, oh yeah, the coyotes must have got to that one. We're like, no, that was us.
nobody packs the ribs out. So.
That was us, and that was yesterday.
Yep. All right, Mark, your turn.
Man, mine's gonna be probably boring, but I think we covered some good realities of elk hunting here, and I guess my thing would be, don't make it. If you have a desire to go, don't make it like this one-time goal. Like someday in my life, I'm gonna go, because it seems like those are the things that you never end up doing, and I'm totally do that with different activities. And my other tie-in to that is it's gonna be hard.
Part 2.
Second last call.
It's going to be hard, but it is doable, and there's a lot of great places to go, and it doesn't have to be you get some crazy draw tag or this, that, the other. There's a lot of great states that you can go, and there's a lot of elk, a lot of places.
Okay.
I have to kind of mirror.
You machine gun in a couple there at the end. But
I have to kind of mirror Mark, and I guess what I'm going to say is, like, I get these calls, guys say it. I don't have $10,000 to go elk hunting, and if you have a few buddies, $1,500 each, you can drive west in many places, like Mark said, and I guarantee you, if you pick like-minded friends who have a sense of adventure, they want to go have a good time, they're going to have a positive attitude, you guys all physically somewhat match up, because that can be a big thing too. I guarantee you're going to have more than a $10,000 adventure.
Yep.
And it's
That's
not going
awesome.
to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. Very cool.
Elk or not.
perfect. All right, we're gonna do a good job not to ruin that.
Yep.
Final last call.
Don't touch it.
And we're gonna say bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.